He turned a small town coffee shop into a business with over 200 employees by having a mindset that goes against everything you've been taught. And his name is Wilson Reiser.
Like, was there a time when like you were completely lost, you didn't know what to do, you didn't know where to take Winans? And if so, could you like kind of tell the story of that time?
Pretty much every morning. Maybe after having a couple beers, you feel like, yeah, maybe I do have some things figured out. But no, I mean, I think the 10,000 hours metric really does have some level of authenticity in that you do something for 10,000 hours and you probably be less bad at it. And so I'm getting to that mark with Winans, and still what this company is going to look like in 5 years and what our strategy is and how we're going to navigate these outside challenges that we have, I don't know. I'm still in the place of, kind of lost and figuring it out as I go.
That sounds like very comforting for a lot of people. There's like this connotation that you have to have things figured out. You have to, even somebody like you is like, sometimes I wake up and I don't know if I'm going the right place, if I'm taking the company right place. But from what I'm hearing from you, you're essentially saying like, you just kind of need to take those small little steps each day. And then over a long period of time, you start to see like the big impact.
This is a cliche thing, but the difference between people that are successful or people that, do not accomplish what they set out to is that people that accomplish what they set out to just don't quit.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. I really don't think there's much more around it. In order to get one of the major departments of my business to a place that I'm, happy with where it is, the data coming out of it's accurate and it works. I had to try 4 different individuals in that. I got lucky with the fifth person, but if that person hadn't have worked out, then I could very well today still be working on how I'm going to fix that department. And it's easy to throw my hands up and say, I'm just never going to fix this. None of this is easy. And I don't really think it gets that much easier, to be honest.
Yeah. Winans wasn't even a thing. It just started and you are starting it. What is the first thing that you would do?
I would start with, a coffee truck, and I would buy a truck that was $30,000 or $40,000, and or actually, let me take it a different way. I probably wouldn't start at the retailing part. I might start at the roasting. So I would buy a really small roaster. I would rent a place that is as dirt cheap as I could find, that doesn't have windows, and just has the right electrical service, ventilation, and a way to get in and out of it with what I need to get in and out of it. And I would start there, and it would be as absolutely low cost and bare bones as possible. And then I would go and see if I can find revenue, if I can find people that want to buy what I'm selling. And where I think a lot of people make mistakes in the beginning, and this is me not speaking from experience because I haven't started a business. This is just my observations from being in business. People fall in love with the idea of what running a coffee roastery will feel like, or, for you maybe running like a production company. And they have this vision in their head of this beautiful facility and having, the countertops that they want to have, and like the TV, and then they go out and get a loan and build that. And then with that loan and that debt, or even if they spend their own capital, and have this, this environment that they see. I want to be a coffee shop, so I'm going to buy this espresso machine and this. And before you know it, you're $150,000 into it. And then you're just then learning whether you have a viable business or not, whether you're selling something that people want, whether you're selling, of course people want coffee, but are you in the right place? Do people want to buy coffee from you? Are you doing everything around your core product that makes sense? And so I think I'm not, I've never lived in the startup world where you are planning to burn capital for 5 years or a decade before you plan to get to profitability. And of course, that's been successful with some of the biggest publicly traded companies in the country right now. And I have absolutely no knowledge of that. But if you're going to shoestring a business, then you damn well better shoestring it. And that means that you are only growing the business based on the earnings of the business. And you start small and you start with what you know and what you can do. And if that doesn't work, then, you're not out your life savings and you're not going bankrupt. So you really have to look at business as what it is, which is a way to generate cash, but also to hopefully get to a place where you have the freedom that you're looking for in your life and you're able to live your life in the way that you want. But to not fall in love with the environment, the surroundings, with how you think you'll be, because you'll get to that place, but you can't start there.
Yeah. It made me think when you were talking, because first you were going like the coffee route, but then you went the roasting route. You don't have to tell me, but are you guys making more money off the roasting route than selling coffee?
No, I mean, they're both important parts of our business. I just think that from what I personally and my personality likes to do on a daily basis, or would like to do, is the manufacturing side and the retailing and being with the public. And I can put that on, I can put that face on, and I can do it, but it doesn't necessarily. It's not my superpower is going out and talking to people and being that. And also you got to get up at 6 a.m. every morning if you're, in charge of running a coffee shop. And like I said, I wouldn't hire people if I'm starting a business. I would do it myself until it was proven. And then I would hire people based on the earnings that were coming in. And that means hiring someone for 10 hours a week at first, probably. And then, you could be years away from hiring one full-time person potentially. So just for what I would like to do on a daily basis, I'd rather be in a manufacturing environment than interacting with the public every day. That's just
do you think it's bad advice that people say chase your passion, or should you just be disciplined enough to find an opportunity and consistently go at it?
I'm not sure. It's something that I think about. Two of the things that I love the most in my personal life are cooking, and I like to play golf. I like to backpack, go on trips. And I think a certain part of me is glad that I didn't pursue those things as a profession, because I still get to really unconditionally love them as an amateur, as just, I can go home and cook a really nice dinner tonight, but I also don't have to. And, but, I have a good friend of mine. He was my freshman year roommate. We lived together really all through college. And he didn't, to my knowledge, love cooking when we were in school, but he started washing dishes at a country club because he needed a job, and then got into doing prep work and so on, and then worked at a different restaurant, and now he's gotten to the place where he's the chef de cuisine at a 1 Michelin star restaurant in Chicago. I think he loves it, and I think he's had a great career to get there. But do I think on his off time he's going to go home and cook a really nice meal? Absolutely not. I mean, he cooks all day, every day. And so, I don't know. It's a tough question. But it's very foundational to people's lives. Yeah. And it's something that, I think everyone has to make their own decisions on. I think that things that are really challenging, you tend to not like that's not my passion. Not a lot of people come out of high school and say, I want to be a tax attorney. That's my passion.
Mm-hmm.
At least I hope not. Those people wouldn't be very fun to hang out with. And I think that the first 5-ish, 10-ish years of doing that are really hard because you're learning a lot and it's incredibly dense and complicated. But when you get to that point, and maybe it's the 5 years where it's about 10,000 hours. I mean, we work about 2,000 hours a year, 2,500 if you're, nutty. And if you're working more than that, then you need to work less. But as you start to get better at those things that are really challenging, you start to like them more. And this isn't an original idea for me. I can't recall exactly where I heard it or read about it, but it feels good to be good at something. And so when you're good at something, if it's, doing masonry or, teaching, when you get good at it, you tend to like it more. It feels really uncomfortable and you think you hate something when you're not good at it or you don't feel like you're good at it. So I think that comes into play as well. And people have to be very real with themselves about what kind of life you want to live. Like if you want to be a scuba instructor, then my take on it, my understanding is that you're probably not going to make much money for a while. You're going to go and work for somebody and like a lot of people want to do that. So you got to do it for cheap. And you learn what you're doing. And then maybe you can down the line make investments and own a business. At that point, spoiler alert, you're running a business. You're not a scuba instructor. But if you say, okay, sign me up for that, that's what I want to do, then that's great. If it's really important for you to own a house and to have financial stability early in life, then you probably should do something that makes more money and that you're probably not going to love immediately.
Probably like the only answer you could really have is, I don't know, is like the only true answer since all humans are so different. But
I mean, the answer is yes, you should follow your passion. Absolutely. Should you follow your passion to put food on the table? I don't know.
I mean, even if it's not your passion, just being good at something, maybe it's like the validation you receive or something like that. But it always, I don't know, it just feels better than something that you don't like to do. And I like the way you said about like hobbies, because if I was to take something I'm very passionate about and like, I have to make a career out of it, now it just feels like work. I feel like you don't bring the same creativity, like that flow isn't there. It's just like everything's forced, if that makes sense. But also made me think about, what do you think the worst advice you can give a 20-year-old?
Buy a house.
Really?
I don't know. I mean, I think that in your early 20s, late teens, early 20s, getting up to maybe like when you're 27, 28, those are the times in your life where you're allowed to, do stupid things, do frivolous things. And life comes at you quick when you start to buy a home, buy a business, get married, have kids. And I have a 17-month-old son, and he's been, incredible. All the things everyone says are absolutely true. But he is by far and away the number one priority in my life right now. So like, there's a very low likelihood that I'm going to, go backpack around New Zealand right now. But when you're 20, you can go backpack around New Zealand. So my advice would be to go frickin' do that.
Yeah.
So the worst advice would be to go after a big paycheck, be disciplined, stay where you are, and be fearful about the world. That would be the worst advice.
So you're saying in your early 20s, you don't like believe somebody should be as disciplined? They should be more like free flowing?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
That's very contrarian advice right there. Because I feel like everybody nowadays is like, you gotta be disciplined.
Yeah, well, they're stupid.
So then let me ask you, what is the biggest regret you have?
Huh. I mean, I think that on this general topic, big regret I had was probably jumping into my career too quickly. When you I graduated college and I went immediately into law school. And when you go immediately into law school, with getting your master's or PhD or something, I only recommend for people to do that if the school is paying you to do it. Like, not only is your school free, but you get a living stipend. And that's like what my wife did. She got her PhD in microbiology and she got paid to do it. It wasn't much, but she didn't come out of school with all this debt. And you go to professional school, for most of us, you come out of school with a lot of debt. And so what does that mean? Well, you have to work at a high-paying job. Okay, what does that mean? You are at the mercy of your employer that's paying you that high wage. And it starts with like parties and fun and everybody smiling, but it very quickly gets to the realization that you don't have a lot of freedom in your life anymore. And so making that decision as a 21-year-old, taking the LSAT, and then being 25 and starting at your job with a ton of debt, I regret not taking some more time when I was young and unburdened. Yeah.
This is super interesting because you're saying essentially the opposite of what people would say. Like, I feel like, or feel nowadays, is like, you need to get a career, you need to get a high-paying job, you need to do everything a lot faster.
Anyone that's telling you that doesn't really care about you as an individual.
Yeah. So you would say that people would probably be more fulfilled in life if they actually took things slower.
Oh yeah.
Really?
Probably, yeah.
So then what advice would you give to, like, let's say 20-year-olds who are lost and confused?
Enjoy it.
Really?
Yeah.
So enjoy being lost and confused.
Yeah.
There's like a love in being lost and confused.
Embrace it. Sit with it. And then don't sit with it. Go out. Go travel if you can. If you can't, then you haven't been creative enough in finding a way to, because there's a lot of ways. You can work at hostels. You can go work at a salmon cannery for 3 months and have enough money to go travel around. There's a lot of ways to do it. I don't know, go out drinking until 4 a.m. and then sleep in the whole next day. I don't know. You get to do those things. No one is expecting anything else. So, just do what you want to do. And if what you want to do is to volunteer, if you have a calling that, I need to be, and this isn't applicable to everybody, right? There are people who I think are gifted with really knowing what makes their blood pump and what makes them, what they want to do with their whole life. And so, like, I from my background, I think of kids that went into college and law school knowing that they're going to be prosecutors, that they're going to prosecute criminal cases. And they did an undergraduate in criminal justice or something like that, and went to law school and then got into the prosecutor's office. And that's what they're doing right now. And that's all that they were sure about it, and they were right. And I think that's a very small percentage of people. There's also people that know, I want to be a tech CEO and have an idea and have an opportunity and go and do it, and they're happy and fulfilled. And what we're talking about, I think, is the majority of people who are 20 and feel lost and confused. So this is not like my advice to everybody. This is to the 20-year-old that's lost and confused.
Yeah.
20-year-old that's lost and confused, embrace it, enjoy it, chase frivolous things.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like everybody's like, well, if you're lost and confused, you need to get a plan, you need to set a goal, work towards the goal, stuff like that. But you're saying embrace it, go on an adventure, essentially experience life. That seems very beautiful.
But like, why not? I'm asking you, like, why not do that?
There really isn't a reason because like just being lost and confused is kind of like a pointless state you're in. Like you're not moving anywhere when you could be like taking a step in any direction.
Yeah, I mean, don't sit on your couch, but like, you don't need to set a goal to, have a 6-figure salary by the time you're 25, because when you do that and you accomplish it, that goal's not really for you, right? That's a goal that you're more worried about outside perceptions, and are people thinking I'm successful, and are people looking at me, and that's never going to lead you to a good place.
Have you experienced that? Like maybe like when you were younger, you're like, I wanted to make this much, and so you got there and you're like,
Absolutely.
What is this all about?
Yeah. Absolutely.
That's exactly what you experienced.
Oh yeah.
Is that like one of the things people get wrong about like success?
Yeah, chasing an income figure is never a good thing to do.
What is one of the biggest things that you've learned from failure?
Failure is more impactful the first 50 times, 100 times. Yeah. And then after that, it's just, you understand that, that's just failure is a definition, I guess. If you say, oh, I went and opened this store and it's lost an incredible amount of money and it's not looking good. That's what happens when you're in the business of opening stores.
Yeah.
So what did I learn? Location, demographics, opening, investment, marketing, hiring the right people, manager to run the store. You don't learn those things until you learn them, and you learn them by opening a store that's really sucks and losing a lot of money. Is that a failure? It's losing a lot of money. But looking at it in a 5, 10, 30, 100-year lens, then it's probably a positive thing to learn those things and to learn them quick.
Yeah.
And early.
So is it then that, like, do you think maybe people, like the reason or the cause of a lot of people's like sadness and all of that is simply from expectation, because they view things differently? For example, like you said, with the failure, like people might have expectation like, oh, this should work on my first try. But then it fails and they're like, what's wrong with me? Like, how could I not do it? But if you look at the other lens, you're like, I just learned a lot. I might have lost the money, but I just learned a lot.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's almost like how you said, like free flow through life. And if you have this goal, I feel like you tend to have a super high expectation for what life should give you. But if you're more like adventurous, you kind of don't have the expectation, and like things feel beautiful because like you're not expecting an outcome of everything that you do. You're just kind of doing things and then outcomes happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be great to be able to be someone that's early in, their business or whatever they're doing, and to have failures and to be able to have that perspective. But I don't know if it's realistic. I mean, I think you are going to feel bad. You're going to feel dumb. You're going to feel like something's wrong with you. I think that's just part of it.
It's part of life at that point.
Yeah.
So is there something that somebody said to you that was so profound that it has always stuck with you?
Yeah, I think, so I've worked with business coaches, and the first few years in this role, when you have a law degree, people tend to defer to you, even if you're young and inexperienced. Like people just think, oh, he's a lawyer, so he's smart. And then also kind of having the title / responsibility of owner, CEO of the company. I was having a tough time just connecting with people, and meaning my team, because people were just waiting for me to make decisions. But I, was not, that's not the environment that I wanted. I wanted more collaboration and people to, take ownership of their parts of the business, and for me to just be able to really support them instead of making the decisions, because that's not sustainable. And so my business coach told me, well, look, man, you got to drop the whole lawyer CEO thing. You got to drop the carrying yourself that way and treating people like, I'm the CEO, you work for me, or, whatever. So, and this was pretty recent. This was like maybe 6 months ago. And so I've been trying to drop that to, I'm a person, you're a person, we're working together towards the same goals. I don't know the answers. You don't know the answers. Probably no one knows the answers. We're going to make a call, and hopefully it's a good enough call, and then we'll get to the place and we'll make another call. So that's been, I think, really impactful for me, and something that I'll never forget is to just, if you want people to collaborate and to, you got to treat everyone just as people, and that's the only way to lead.
Take a little tangent. It made me think, I feel like Winans has grown really fast, like over the past couple years. Like I feel like you're starting to see it everywhere now. What do you think like the biggest reason that is, if that makes sense?
The physical footprint has grown. Nothing drastic, like if you're comparing it against national franchises, we're becoming a regional brand. We're in the Dayton and Columbus markets. We have 23 locations. We've opened Lima, Van Wert, Short North, Salina, soon to be Marysville, all within the last 18 months. So it is a lot of new locations coming on board in a pretty quick time. But remind me what your question was specifically.
I just felt like it has grown really fast.
Oh, right. Yeah. So we opened a handful of locations in a pretty short period of time, given the size and magnitude of our business. There's been learning from that as well. And I think that in our industry, in coffee particularly, it's considered a growth industry. There's a lot of new coffee outlets springing up. There have been national competitors coming into our market now for quite a while. And at one point, Winans was the only game in town. And pretty drastically. I mean, there's no other coffee nearby. And so I think I had a little bit of this perception that there's like a kind of land grab type thing, we got to claim our space and so on. And I think that is ultimately a bad way of looking at growth, because people are not going to be loyal to a coffee company just because they're the first one to open. It's ultimately going to come down every time to hospitality and how people are treated, and then the quality of the product.
So you are focusing on hospitality first, then product, would you say? Would you put hospitality in a business? Would you put hospitality above product?
My focus, I'm a snob about my food, my coffee, wine, cigars. And so to me personally, I really want to run a business that has a quality product, something that I'm proud to put forward and that brings value to people. But I think that in running shops, in running restaurants, a restaurant with great hospitality and average food is going to do incredibly exponentially better than a restaurant with great food and average hospitality. A restaurant with great food and poor hospitality is going to go out of business pretty quickly. A business with poor food and great hospitality is probably still going to make it. Yeah. I mean, go drive around. There's a lot of places with bad food, but they got it down and treat you well. So I think that in running a food establishment, you have to put hospitality first, because if people don't leave feeling good and feeling like they're treated well, then they're not going to come back.
Yeah. Do you think, is there like some coffee industry secret about growth that most people don't know about? Like, is it buying new locations? Is it maybe going online more, doing your own roasting?
There was a really drastic increase of people buying specialty coffee beverages in 2020, and I attribute that to people were not going on vacations and we're not going to concerts, so there was a lot more discretionary income that was going towards buying good food, good drinks, and so there was kind of a boom from my perspective in specialty food, and that drove a lot of this growth. And now we're seeing a more gradual pullback, and we're at the point now where I think things are more regularized, and we're back to what's a more sustainable thing. But a lot of businesses have sprung up to feed that demand. And so no, I mean, I don't think there's any secret. The more of your supply chain you control, that gives a little bit more stability. Also,
so you guys do
risk.
Like roasts?
Oh, we roast, yeah.
Everything.
So Winans, to give just a little bit more about the business, we make all of the chocolate across the street here. We roast all the coffee, and then we retail. We also have a web store, and we franchise. So we are in 5 different business verticals.
So you would recommend people that they do the manufacturing themselves?
No, not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
I think as time goes on in a business, you decide what's next. And for some, coffee concepts, that's going to mean more locations. It's going to mean maybe adding breakfast or pastries or more various options to your, there's no one way to do this or any type of business. It's balanced between what you want to do and what you think you will work, and then ultimately what the market tells you they want.
So you guys aren't franchised, are you?
We are a franchisor.
So what's the difference? Oh, because you own the franchises.
So in our franchising, we have 23 Winans locations. We operate 9 of them as company stores. So those managers directly answer, ultimately to me in my role. And we train, hire, all of those things for those stores. And then for 14 of our locations, they're franchised. So we have a franchise agreement that has a duration of time. They buy the products from us, so they buy the chocolate and coffee that we make. And really, the goal is that a person should not be able to walk into a store and really know whether is this a company store, is this a franchise, what it is, because we have brand standards that keep uniformity, and that's kind of the golden goose of franchising is do you have consistency and uniformity in your concept? And then we do all of the marketing, all of the creation and the artwork and so on. And then our franchisees do the local marketing. So they'll be members of the Chamber of Commerce, do billboards or things like that to promote their own business, because they're business owners, but they own a Winans franchise.
So how does that work? Were you guys asked?
Yeah, so my parents started franchising 25 years ago, and it was a pretty common story that someone came to them, said, wow, what you're doing is really awesome. They had 3 locations at the time, and I want a franchise. And so they started down that road.
How did it look? Run me through the process. How does that work for a business? How do you start to be able to franchise some of your stores?
So how we franchise, there's a franchise agreement, and the franchise agreement says, I'm going to open a location here. I'm going to build out the location consistent with the wine and store. Basically, I'm not going to do a lot of these other things. If a Winans franchisee says, everyone's coming in and saying they want hot dogs here, and I'm going to get a hot dog roller and start selling hot dogs, then as the franchisor, where we're tasked with uniformity and consistency, and we're tasked with that to protect everybody's investments, then we would say, we don't do hot dogs. First, it'll make the chocolate taste like hot dogs because it absorbs every aroma that's around it. And second, it's just, we're a chocolate and coffee business. We kind of are elevated. We have great ingredients. This is what we do. We've been making chocolate for 5 generations. We've been roasting coffee for 30 years. We don't really know the hot dog business. It doesn't really fit. And so we say no.
Yeah.
The franchisees, they're selling Winans products. They pay a royalty on what they sell, and that's how we make revenue from franchising. And the idea of it is that when you are running your own business, you have marketing expenses, you have admin expenses, you have operational things, you have to have standards and SOPs. All of those things are expensive. They take time, they take ownership time. So the idea of franchising is that centralizing all of those things means that we can provide it as the franchisor for cheaper than each individual location would be able to do on their own. Also about franchising is economies of scale. So if one McDonald's had to go out and buy beef and buy bread and pickles and everything else, then they would probably be charging 3-4 times as much for a burger as they are right now. Mm-hmm. But instead they have 10,000 stores and McDonald's corporate with some of the most sophisticated purchasers and supply chain people in the world that are doing that for them. So are they paying a lot in royalties? Yeah, they are. Could they afford to buy products at that scale and those cost savings on their own? No, not even close. So that's another part of franchising and how it can work.
What do you think you could do better?
I'm still really learning about leadership, developing people, developing teams. It's something that I'm pretty sure I'll keep learning as long as I'm doing it, but I still have some catching up to do.
When you're hiring for Winans, is the education like college super important for you, like the resume, or is it are you looking more so at what they can do?
I think that if we're hiring for a position and we're talking about education, then that's a person that we are ready to have a 2 to 3 year training and just maturity and so on, because that person, you're not going to take an educational background and come into a business and make an impact from day one. That just doesn't happen. So we have hired people based on their educational achievements and, having a degree in marketing. If you're going to be hired into a marketing department, mm-hmm. that's, helpful. It's going to help you get the interview. And if the business is looking for an entry-level marketing person, then yeah. For most of the hires, because we're a small office, so we're not developing a lot of professionals. I hope that one day we can get to that place where we have the kind of the number of people that we can mentor and bring people in. But for instance, I needed a controller that could get our books to where I wanted them to be, to break up different departments, to get our costing. And I didn't have 10 years that it would take. So for my controller, Connie, who's been with me for about 1.5 years now, I actually don't know where she went to college or studied, or I don't know for sure if she did. I do know that she ran the accounting and HR departments for a very large Honda parts supplier for 30 years, and that she then went into an in-house accounting firm and did small business services for people, and she was doing services for me, and then that firm was kind enough to let me hire her directly. But I had already worked with her for about 6 months by the time I hired her. I already knew what she was about. And I kind of find that hiring is going in that direction when it comes to higher level people. That because we are in this more remote first workplace where Zoom meetings are probably more common than in-person meetings, especially with outside service providers. For a marketing person that's going to come in and be a mid or upper level marketing person, they're going to work with us on a contract basis for months before, we're going to talk about a full-time salary position, because that's the way of the economy, and it makes sense for the individual because they're, billing at a good rate and making a good income from doing that work. They also, when you are really recruiting high-level talent, they're interviewing you as much or sometimes more than we're interviewing them. I mean, we're not, GE in the 1980s where, everyone just wants to be at Winans. We got to show that we have a culture, we have, how we treat each other is how somebody wants to be treated, and just general attitude towards life and work. Those things all need to align, because if they don't, then we're not going to have a long-term, mutual beneficial situation.
Yeah.
So going back to your question, education in my business, not really that important.
Really? Take me on the journey of how you got here.
I grew up in Piqua and grew up in this business, in this family business. We trace back 5 generations of confectioners, bakers, candy makers. Graduated from Troy High School, went to college in Montana, studied political science. Really enjoyed my time in Montana. Worked for the governor of Montana for a short period of time after I graduated college, and I learned that government is, has its place and is important, but it wasn't necessarily my speed. So that was a good realization. I came back to Ohio, went to Ohio State Law School, and did well in law school, graduated in 2018, and then went and worked for Voorhees, Sater, Seymour and Pease law firm in downtown Columbus. So pretty big law firm, started in the early 1900s in Columbus, and I was at Voorhees for a little over 2 years. I also was sent out to clerk for a federal judge for a short period of time. And then 2020 came around, and my parents had been running the business for 27 years at that point, and there was a lot to navigate with COVID and different things that were going on at that time. Businesses were largely our type of business that is open to the public, and retailers were largely kept afloat by different federal programs like the PPP. So that was something to navigate. Also the restrictions on doing business and how many people you can have in your stores and the shutdowns and all of that. So kind of felt like a time that I needed to come back and help my parents and focus on the family business, and navigating it through, because it was a scary time, and it felt at that time that it's very likely that a lot of businesses were not going to make it through, and a lot didn't. So I came back to Winans at that time, and I've been back ever since. So I just finished my 5th Christmas running the business. In early 2021, I took the title of CEO, so I've been in that decision-making role for coming on 4 years now. I purchased the business from my parents on January 1st of 2022. So I just finished my 3rd year of owning the business, and my parents have moved on to their next thing in life. So they're kind of quasi-nomadic, and they live in Ohio some of the time and Montana, and are just on their next phase, which 30 years doing something, it's time to do something else. So that's gone well, and I've learned a lot in the last 4.5 years. I had to learn a lot of just classic business knowledge that I didn't have from my education or background. So
what would be some of those things that didn't come from the education that you learned?
I'd say the most fundamental thing was just accounting and financial background. So luckily, it is something you can teach yourself and get a pretty high level of proficiency. But it probably took me all of 2 years and 4 or 5 books, a lot of education at conferences, and to really understand the intricacies of it. And then managing people. I mean, I didn't have much experience. When you're practicing law, you're not really managing people. Even law firm partners aren't, for the most part, the heads of the groups and the heads of the firms manage people, but regular law firm partner, you have your caseload and you have a few associates that work for you, but those associates are some of the most high capacity and driven people in the workforce.
Yeah.
So they don't need, a lot of managing. They kind of work, 70, 100 hours a week and are working on their career. So anyway, I didn't have a lot of experience in managing people. And at Winans, as it stands today, I came into the business, we had about 125 employees. We have 200 now. So there's a lot of people to manage, and learning about what motivates different people. And I had to take a step back from this world where everybody is ambitious, everybody is going after big paychecks and big resume things, and that was kind of the currency that was happening in the law firm and in that world, and that's not the case for everybody. And what I had to learn is that people have made conscious decisions to live their lives in certain ways. Yeah. And really to be curious about what those motivations are. And a lot of times those motivations are to not go home with a lot of stress and responsibility, and to be able to prioritize family, and to know that you're going to leave work at a certain time every day, and that you're going to have weekends off. And those were things that were kind of looked down upon in the law firm world. So I had to learn those things.
That's